Hi, I'm Jen Rice, and in this video I'd love to elaborate more on what I'm calling whole mind development. In my first video I talked about 2 of the 5 mind modes: analyzing mind, which we all are very familiar with, the logical, linear, numbers-loving mind, and sensing, what I call navigating life like a bat, without eyes, without analyzing. It's this felt somatic sense of knowing. Today, I want to talk more about the 2 other modes: connecting mind, which is like analyzing, it's brain-based, and feeling mind, our emotions, and that emotional wisdom, which is also body-based, along with sensing. And the best way I can explain this is in context of complexity. What happens when we're faced with complexity? Well, an analyzer, or someone who is very comfortable in that kind of left brain mode, is going to deal with complexity by organizing it. Organizing it, putting everything into boxes, putting it into hierarchies. It's that way of essentially making sense of the world. But what happens when you are dealing with an incredible amount of complexity? Large organizations deal with numbers of different types of customers, so consumer, small business, enterprise, multiply that times products, services, business units, different regions around the world, different departments and functions within every single one of those organizations. How do you manage all of that? Well, we used to manage it by borrowing ideas from the industrial age, and that's analyzing mind. A way of actually simplifying it is to tap into connecting mind. So connecting mind sees the whole, it sees the gestalt. It finds the common denominator across all of that complexity, and it cuts away everything that is not part of that resulting whole. And that takes a little bit of practice if you're not used to it. It's all about pattern matching. Start playing around with analogies and metaphors, is just to get you going. So a master at connecting mind was Steve Jobs. Apple sells to every single customer segment on the planet. But what holds it all together is an idea. It's an idea that magnetizes an entire ecosystem, well beyond, employees, customers, partners, on a global scale. It completely disregards all of the differences. And, interestingly, it was the first company to hit $1 trillion in valuation, so they must be doing something right. What Steve Jobs understood how to tap is the power of emotion, that feeling mind that we all have. And the reason why he could do that so well is because he was so in touch with who he was, an individual. He was someone who thought different. And because he lived and embodied this idea, he magnetized everyone else who also shared that idea. There's an identity in there, there's emotion in there. How do we all want to feel? So I have spent the last 30 years studying how people want to feel. I have been doing tons of segmentation studies, understanding what makes people tick, researching, belonging to organizations like Forrester, who has also done extensive research on what motivates behavior. And at the end of the day, what motivates all of us is emotion. So if we don't understand how to harness this power of feeling and emotion within our organizations and also within ourselves, we're really missing out. I think that if you talk about someone like Steve Jobs, we also have to recognize that he was also had his limitations. I don't want to hold him up as, the end-all be-all. You can go beyond this idea of just finding the common thread and the common denominator by seeing how we are then connected to everything else. We're connected to our environment, our societies, our communities. We tap into deeper areas of our own emotion in terms of being an empathetic leader. So at this point, I'd love to pull in a different kind of leader, Martin Luther King. Also, who I would say taps the whole mind, but is much more grounded. What a powerful, somatic, felt sense of energy he brought. And he knew how to speak to the human soul. He knew how to speak to emotion. He knew how to move people. So if you almost kind of take both of these individuals, they're very complementary. But I can see how they both use these ideas of feeling into what's right and wrong. What is a yes or a no? How do we harness the power of emotion? How do we harness the power of empathy? Connectivity. Dr. King defined connectivity in a really different way than Steve Jobs. It was more about people connecting, communities connecting, the whole world connecting. So all of these different modes can mean very different things depending on your context. Now I will say from a personal level, after 30 years of asking the question, how do your customers want to feel? I suddenly asked myself, how do I want to feel as an individual? I literally asked myself this last year during my sabbatical. It's like, hang on a moment. What motivates me? Of the 12 core human needs that we all share, at the end of the day, I want to feel free, impactful, expressive, connected. Out of 34,000 emotions, I've boiled it down to these 4, which serve as what I call my inner compass. So the what may change, as it always will. When we get too married to a what is when I think we tend to get stuck. When we can orient around how do we want to feel in our lives, it becomes something very attainable. It's not some goal out there. Because gradually, every single day, I can make choices that bring more of these feelings into my life, even if it's just for 30 minutes. When I start feeling kind of unfulfilled, I realize I haven't tapped my freedom need. So I'll grab my camera and go for a walk in downtown, turn off my phone, just wander. How do you want to feel in your life? And how are you using that to make decisions? Do you know your fellow teammates? What motivates them? How do they want to feel? How does that change the way you communicate with them? Do you know how your customers want to feel? And are you creating this power of coherence? Coherence is everything lined up. This is when flow happens. Coherent light is a laser that cuts through steel. Coherence within ourselves, in the truth of who we are, and aligning that with our work, with our lives, with the other people that we're collaborating with, using these ideas, the power of emotion, to just harness and magnetize entire global ecosystems. There's so much power in these ideas. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's resonating for you? How do you want to feel in your life? And stay tuned for the next video where I'll keep going.